Welcome to the MMA Junkie Rankings Report for Wednesday, January 22nd, 2020. This past week, of course, it was all about UFC 246. Gorgeous George, our rankings chair, is with me, so let's just get into it, George. Conor McGregor picks up the big win over Donald Cerrone. Now, Conor's such a unique fighter, right? Because he's the biggest star in the sport. He's definitely accomplished great things as a champ, but he doesn't fight a whole lot, right? So it's really hard to find a good place to slot him in there. He started the week at number 13, which isn't necessarily representative of his skill level, but I think is certainly representative of his activity level. But then he comes in, gets this, incredible kind of statement win in his comeback. What do you do with him?
Right. So when he actually left, for a good bit, he was number one. He was the champ. And eventually both titles were gone and out of his life. And Khabib steps in. So his only fight since beating Eddie Alvarez for the title has been Khabib Nurmagomedov going into this weekend, who happens to be the champ, undefeated.
Right.
But yeah, he slowly dropped, kind of like call it attrition as these events are taking place. Look, you got to reward the ones that are out there banging and put it on the line. Conor, even though we know and we're well aware of his skill set, he just wasn't fighting. He was boxing and doing other stuff. But then he comes back and has a statement win like that. I mean, he beat Donald Cerrone, and Donald Cerrone was number 5 in our rankings. So even though those big jumps, I don't like them too much, because I always think about, what does number 12 think? Number 11, as that guy's sailing over, why is he getting ahead of me? You know what I mean? I look and see, and Makhachev, Felder, Oliveira, those guys are streaking. They could have a say in this. However, they just haven't fought those big names like McGregor has. So McGregor makes that move. He makes it all the way to number 5. Cerrone, takes a back seat. And I know a lot of people would even take a look and say, Cerrone, man, that guy's lost 3 in a row. But he's lost to the guy that's going to be number 5, the current number 2, and the current number 4. So when you're out there banging against the best, you got to expect some of these results. So that's a tough division to rank, honestly, John, but I think that's the fairest way to look at it.
No question. All right, the co-main event, Holly Holm was victorious there. It was a clear win, even if it necessarily wasn't the most exciting result that we've seen for sure. But It's an interesting one in terms of numbers, right? Because she comes in at number 10 on the week. Meanwhile, Raquel Pennington, who she beats, was sitting at number 5. So very clearly some adjustments to make there. Again, even if it wasn't the most exciting fight that we've seen in recent memory, you still got to respect the results. So what do we do with women's bantamweight? Yeah,
so again, we're going to make the move to Holm and place her on top of Pennington because she's now beaten her 2 times. It was not a statement type of W, but it was a W. And Holm has been putting in work in this division for a long time, so you have to take that in consideration. But I don't want, Irene Aldana's won 2 in a row, and I think 5 of her last 6. She's doing well, so she's not going to get in front of Irene Aldana or Caitlin Vera, who was 10-0 up until losing to Irene Aldana. What we're going to do is we're going to slot Aldana up to 5, Vieira up to 6, and then we're going to have Pennington drop down to 8 and put Holm at 7. I think that's a good move. Right now, Sarah Kaufman was trying her hand at 155 pounds over at PFL, and Kat Zingano is still trying to work her way through Bellator, but I don't think they offer any resistance to Holm's move.
Yeah, no question about it. Okay, well, listen, another interesting division here in the women's divisions, the women's flyweight. That massive upset there, right? Roxanne Modafferi comes in, picks up a big win over the previously undefeated Macy Barber. I got to be honest, I was kind of expecting a big shakeup. This is a big result, but that doesn't happen. So explain to me, George, why we're not doing anything really with women's flyweight.
I'm a big believer in head-to-head, especially when records, the resumes are really, really close, and it's the more recent head-to-head, the stronger the argument, right? And that's exactly what happened. Maya just beat Roxanne Modafferi. We're not going to have Modafferi leapfrog Maya because she beat somebody that's behind her in the rankings. And then you go down to the rankings. All right, what do we do about Barber, who just took her first loss? Oh, wow, she just beat Jillian Robertson, who had a nice streak going herself. So really, we're not going to place her behind. But luckily, there's a little bit of movement down at the bottom. Viviana Araujo, look, she had a nice record, but she just recently took a loss. The other 2 gals down there, Alejandra Lara and Lauren Murphy, are working off wins. And Sabina Matos 7-1, so very similar to 8-2, except guess what? Her 2-1 UFC record, she's coming off a win. And unfortunately, Viviana Araujo's coming off a loss, so a little bit of a flip-flop there down at the honorable mentions.
I like it. Well, let's get some change there at women's flyweight.
We lost Grasso and Gadelia, and if Pettis had won, maybe there'd be more to talk about. If Youssef put a stamp on that win over Feely. Maybe there's a shakeup down there, but that's all I have for this week.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, well, listen, it's going to be a busy week, this one coming up. We've got the UFC and Bellator both in action, so we'll definitely expect to see some moves there. We'll talk about it next week on the Rankings Report.